The hospital smelled of cold metal and forgotten hope. Machines beeped in slow, uneven rhythms, like a tired heart knocking on a locked door. Elena stood beside the hospital bed, her fingers trembling as they brushed a strand of hair from her son's forehead. Matteo had been unconscious for 3 days. 3 long, shapeless days. Doctors spoke in careful, distant tones. Words like minimal chances, wait and see, prepare yourself, hung in the air like invisible weights pressing against her chest. Elena whispered, "God, please. Just a sign. Just something." But heaven felt silent. And silence can be the loudest answer of all. That night, Elena left the hospital room and walked down the long corridor. The lights flickered above her, and each flicker felt like a heartbeat skipping. Outside, rain drummed softly on the pavement. She leaned against the cold wall, closed her eyes, and tried to breathe. She didn't see him at first. The man standing under the flickering street lamp at the far end of the hospital entrance. Barefoot, wearing a simple white robe. Head slightly bowed as if listening to a voice she could not hear. But when she opened her eyes again, he was looking directly at her. Elena wiped her tears quickly. She was embarrassed by the intensity of his gaze. She took a hesitant step closer. Do I know you?" she asked. He smiled gently. It was not a smile that came only from the lips, but from somewhere deeper. "No," he said softly, "but I know your heart." Her breath caught. "How?" "You've been carrying fear," he said, "like a stone in your chest. You think hope is gone. But hope is only sleeping." A gust of wind blew through the parking lot. It carried the scent of wet pavement, and something else, something warm, like burning candles in a quiet chapel. Elena shivered. She wasn't sure if it was from the cold, or from whatever he carried within him. She took another step. "My son. He's dying." The man nodded slowly. "That," he said, "is why I am here." "Walk with me," the man said. Elena followed him through the sliding glass doors. Inside, the hospital corridor felt different. Warmer. Softer. As if the lights had brightened without anyone touching a switch. Nurses passed by, but none looked at him. As if he wasn't there. As if only she could see him. Her heart pounded. "Who are you?" He paused, turning to face her. Rain still clung to his hair, yet his robe remained impossibly dry. He spoke her name. Elena. Her knees weakened. No one had said her name that way since her grandmother, with tenderness, almost with song. "My name," he said, "is Jesus." The corridor fell silent. A silence that wasn't emptiness, but fullness. A silence that carried meaning. A silence that felt alive. The hospital lobby was cold. Too bright. Too quiet for a place filled with so much fear. Elena rushed inside, her breath short and sharp, each step echoing across the polished floor. The man in white walked behind her with no hurry at all, as if time itself bent around him. They turned a corner. A nurse lifted her head. "Elena?" Her voice softened. "You should hurry. He's fading." Elena's legs trembled. A wave of nausea rose inside her. She pushed open the door to the pediatric ICU. Machines beeped in fragile rhythm. Monitors glowed pale green and blue. Her little boy lay motionless beneath thin white sheets, his skin almost as pale as the pillows. Elena stumbled to his bedside. "Matteo, I'm here. Mommy's here." No movement. No flicker of recognition. Only the rise and fall of a machine pushing air into lungs that no longer fought. Behind her, the man in white stood still, watching the boy with a gaze that seemed older than the world. "Elena," he whispered, "miracles do not begin with light. They begin with surrender." She turned to him, her voice breaking. "What do I have to surrender?" His eyes held hers. "Fear. And before she could answer, the lights in the room flickered, once, twice, as if something unseen had entered with them. The lights steadied again, but the air felt different, heavier, warmer, almost charged with something Elena could not name. She sat beside Matteo, taking his tiny cold hand in both of hers. "I can't lose him," she whispered. The man approached quietly, not touching her, not touching the boy, yet the monitors responded, their soft beeps shifting slightly, stabilizing. Elena gasped. "Are you doing that?" "No," he said gently. "You are." "Me?" She shook her head. "I'm not strong enough." "You're stronger than you think. A mother's love can move heaven long before heaven moves anything else." She looked at the boy's fragile chest rising mechanically. "Then why isn't he waking up?" The man stepped closer. "Because someone is still holding the door closed." Elena frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," he whispered. He reached out, not to the boy but to the space above him. The air shimmered, like heat rising from asphalt. The heart monitor slowed, then steadied. The room filled with a warmth that didn't belong to hospitals. Elena felt something stirring inside her chest. Memories she had locked away, pain she had swallowed for years. And then he said, "Elena, forgiveness isn't only for the living." Her breath froze, because she suddenly knew exactly who he meant. Elena felt the world tilt slightly, as if the floor had shifted beneath her feet. Her fingers tightened around Matteo's hand. "What do you mean, forgiveness isn't only for the living?" The man didn't answer at first. He walked to the other side of the bed, placing himself directly across from her. The monitors reflected softly in his eyes, steady, rhythmic, alive. "Elena," he said quietly, "there are doors inside you that have been closed for too long." She swallowed hard. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You do." His voice did not accuse. It invited. A tremor moved through her chest, small at first, then heavier, spreading like warmth and ice at the same time. "Elena," he continued, "you carry the memory of a voice, a last conversation, a goodbye you never answered." Her breath caught. "No. Please, don't." She pressed a hand to her mouth, as if she could hold back the avalanche rising inside her. But it was too late. The room around her faded. The beeping of the machine softened. And she heard it again. The voice she had spent years trying to forget. Softer than wind. Clearer than any memory should be. "Elena, I'm sorry I had to leave so early." Her knees buckled. A sob tore through her, sharp and raw. No, I can't think about him." The man stepped closer, his presence calm, steady. "You must, not to reopen the wound, but to finally let it heal." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand," she cried. "He left me. He left us. And the day he died, I didn't pick up the phone. I was angry. I didn't answer. I didn't say goodbye." The words spilled out like blood from a deep wound. The man in white lowered his gaze with compassion ancient as the earth. "He didn't leave you. He went where you could not follow yet. And he never blamed you for that unanswered call." Her vision blurred. Tears fell freely without restraint. "Elena, miracles begin where guilt ends." And before she could speak, a voice, faint but unmistakable, whispered from the bed, "Mom?" The room froze. Elena's breath stopped in her throat. She stared at her son, afraid to blink, afraid that if she did, the moment would vanish like a dream slipping through trembling fingers. "Matteo," she whispered. His lips had moved. so faintly she wondered if her mind had imagined it. But then, his eyelashes fluttered. A soft sound escaped his throat. Weak, fragile, but real. Elena leaned over him, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." The boy's eyes didn't fully open, but the corners of his mouth shifted, the ghost of a smile, as if he recognized her voice from far, far away. Behind them, the man in white stepped closer, though his expression did not change. He watched with the stillness of someone who had seen miracles unfold 1,000 times before. Yet each one still mattered. "Matteo," Elena cried, her voice cracking. "Please stay with me." The boy's fingers twitched. Just once. Just enough to break her heart wide open. "Elena," the man said softly. "Listen closely." Her tears blurred everything, but she turned toward him. "Your son is touching the place between worlds," he continued. "He's speaking from a threshold very few ever reach." Elena shook her head desperately. "I don't want thresholds. I want him alive." The man placed a hand gently over Matteo's small chest, not touching the skin, but hovering an inch above it. The air vibrated. A warmth spread outward, soft and golden. "Elena," he whispered, "life is not measured only by breath. Sometimes a single moment of awakening carries the wisdom of years." Her heart pounded violently. "What is he trying to tell me?" The man nodded toward the boy. "Listen." And then, Matteo's lips parted again. A faint whisper escaped, thin as candle smoke. "Mom, don't be afraid." Elena's knees weakened. She gripped the bed rail to stay upright. "Matteo?" But the boy's breath slowed again, gliding gently back toward the stillness of sleep. "Elena," the man said, "he crossed the veil, only for you." A sob rose inside her, raw, aching, full. "For me? Why?" The man's eyes shone with a compassion so deep it felt like a tide rising in the room. "Because there is something you must know." He stepped closer. The monitors hummed softly. The light in the room shifted. Warmer, deeper, almost sacred. And then he spoke the words that stole the air from her lungs. "Elena, your son met someone on the other side." Elena's fingers curled against her own chest as if holding herself together. Her breath came in shaky waves. "Someone? Who did my son see?" The man in white didn't answer immediately. He lowered his head slightly, not in hesitation, but in reverence. "Elena," he said quietly, "when the body weakens, the spirit sees clearly. Your son stood at a threshold where hearts meet without words." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. Please just tell me." His eyes lifted, soft as candlelight. "He didn't call for you, Elena. Not first. Not this time." Her blood ran cold. "Then, who?" The man stepped closer to the bed. His hand hovered again above the child's chest, and the air shimmered gently, like ripples on still water. "Your son," he whispered, "met someone who has loved him since before his first breath." Elena's vision blurred. A memory broke through her like lightning. A laugh she used to wake up to. A pair of warm eyes. The smell of coffee in the morning. The last missed call on her phone. The date on the death certificate she never had the strength to read twice. "No," her voice cracked. "It can't be. I can't." But the man's voice was steady, soothing. "Elena," he saw his father. Her knees buckled. A sob ripped out of her, raw and aching. He talked to him?" Her voice was barely audible. A child's whisper inside a grown woman. The man nodded once, solemn. "Not with words, Elena. Spirits rarely need them." They met, heart to heart. She pressed her fist to her mouth, trying not to scream under the weight of grief and wonder mixed together. What did he say to Matteo?" The man's eyes softened even more, if that was possible. What every father longs to tell his child, even when time is stolen from them. Elena trembled violently. Please, tell me. The man looked at her the way eternity might look at a single fragile life. Gentle, tender, unbearably patient. And then he whispered. He told your son that love doesn't end with death. It only waits. Elena broke. She collapsed into the chair beside the bed, sobbing with her face in her hands. Pain and peace hit her at the same time, like two tides crashing into each other. The man stepped back slightly, giving her space. Elena, he added softly, your son returned with that truth still on his lips. She lifted her head, eyes swollen, trembling. What truth? The man leaned closer, and the world seemed to still around him. Elena, your son said he wasn't afraid anymore. Elena felt her heart stumble. A physical jolt, as if someone had reached inside her chest and pressed too hard. My son said he's not afraid. Her voice was barely a breath. What does that mean? The man didn't answer immediately. He looked at Matteo with an expression so tender it felt like a prayer. Elena, he began, when souls cross the threshold and return, they come back carrying messages the living cannot ignore. She blinked through tears. I don't want messages. I want him alive. The man stepped closer to her. So close she could see the faint shimmer of light along the edges of his robe. He is alive, he said. But his spirit walked farther than most humans ever do, and he brought something back with him. Elena shook her head. I don't understand. You will, he whispered. He placed his hand over Matteo's chest again, hovering, never touching. The lights dimmed. The machine softened. A warmth spread through the room like dawn breaking in slow motion. Elena, he said gently, your son saw the one thing that dissolves fear. Her breath hitched. What? Love. The word was simple, but it detonated inside her like fire. He saw his father, the man continued, and in that place between breaths, his father told him he was not alone, that he never would be again. Elena closed her eyes. Tears ran freely. He said, the man whispered, that he felt warm, safe, held. She covered her mouth with both hands. And now, he added, your son carries that light within him. The room pulsed with a soft golden glow. So subtle Elena wasn't sure if it came from the ceiling, or from her child. Why are you telling me this? She asked, voice breaking. The man in white stepped even closer. So close he felt like a living heartbeat. Because, Elena, you still haven't forgiven yourself. The words hit her harder than any truth before. She couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. You blame yourself, he continued, for missing the call, for letting anger win that day, for every moment you weren't perfect. Elena collapsed into the chair again, sobbing. I loved him so much. Her voice cracked. So much. I didn't want. I just couldn't talk to him that day. The man knelt beside her. The Creator kneeling beside a broken heart. Elena, he said softly, your husband forgave you long before he left this world. Her sobs grew harder, shaking through her like thunder. And your son, he added, came back to give you the same gift. What gift? She whispered. He stood slowly, turning toward the bed. The gift of release. Matteo's eyes fluttered again. Just barely. His fingers tightened around hers with sudden, surprising strength. Mom? His voice was a fragile echo. It's okay. Elena's soul ruptured. She leaned over him, forehead touching his. Oh, my baby, my baby. Then, as if guided by someone she could not see, Matteo whispered. He said you don't have to cry anymore. He said, you'll see him again. Elena froze. Every hair on her arms rose. Her heart felt like glass on the edge of shattering. Before she could speak, the man in white stepped back. Elena, he said, your son returned so you could let go of the guilt that has chained your spirit. Her tears streamed uncontrollably. I don't know how. You will, he replied. And then, the air in the room shifted. A gentle wind, impossible indoors, brushed her cheek. Her son's chest rose. Slowed. Wait, she gasped. No. Please. The man in white placed a hand on her shoulder. Elena, he whispered, don't fear the stillness. She stared at the monitors, the numbers flickering in uncertain rhythm. And then, Matteo exhaled, and for a moment, everything in the room went completely, impossibly silent. The silence was absolute, thick, sacred, like the world had stopped breathing with her. Elena stood frozen beside the bed, one hand gripping the rail, the other clutching her son's tiny fingers. Matteo? Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. No answer. Only stillness. The man in white stood behind her, eyes lowered as if honoring something holy. Elena, he said softly. Listen. I don't hear anything, she cried. Her words broke apart. All I hear is, nothing. He nodded, stepping closer. Yes, nothing. The purest silence. She turned to him, face drenched in tears, anger mixing with terror. How can you say that like it's a good thing? Because, he said gently, silence is where heaven speaks first. Her breath caught. She looked back at Matteo, her heart beating painfully loud inside her chest. The only sound in the universe. I can't lose him, she whispered. I can't. The man placed a hand over hers. Warm, solid, steady. You haven't lost him. She shook her head violently. He's not breathing. Can't you see that? His gaze softened even more. Elena, look with your spirit, not your fear. She didn't understand. Didn't want to understand. She just wanted her son's chest to rise again. Then, like a drop of water falling into an endless well, a faint, delicate sound touched the air. One breath. Soft, gentle, barely there. Elena gasped, her knees nearly giving out. Another breath. Stronger. A whisper of life returning. Matteo, she whispered again, the word trembling. The man smiled, not with joy, but with something deeper. Recognition. Reverence. Elena, you are standing in the space between miracles. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Is he coming back? Yes, the man whispered. But not because you begged. Not because you feared. Not because you fought. He looked into her eyes, and she felt something ancient and true settle inside her. He is returning because love called him by name. Her heart cracked open. Completely. Matteo's fingers twitched again. This time with intention. With warmth. A soft sigh escaped his lips. His eyelids fluttered. Elena, the man said. Listen closely to his first words. She leaned in, breath trapped in her throat, waiting, trembling. And then, with a voice fragile as dawn breaking, Matteo whispered, Mom, I saw him. Elena's breath died. Saw who? Her voice shook. Matteo's eyes opened halfway, glazed with tears, glowing with a light no hospital bulb could create. The man who told me, you don't have to be sad anymore. Elena's body trembled so violently she had to hold onto the bed. Matteo, who are you talking about? The boy blinked slowly as if remembering a dream too real to describe. He said he loves you, the boy whispered. And he misses your laugh. Elena collapsed into sobs. Only one person could have said that. Only one man had loved her laugh like that. Only one voice her son could have heard beyond the veil. Her husband. Before she could speak, the man in white stepped back. Elena, he said softly, now you know the truth. She looked up at him, breath shaking. What truth? The man met her eyes, and for the first time, she felt the weight of eternity behind his gaze. Elena, I am the one who brought him to your son. Elena stared at him, trembling from the inside out. What do you mean? You brought him to my son? The man in white took one slow step forward. Not threatening, not imposing, just present, completely present. His eyes held the softness of dawn breaking over mountains, and yet a depth that could swallow galaxies. Elena, he whispered, every barrier between heaven and earth is thinner than you think. Her breath caught. She couldn't look away, couldn't blink. The monitors beside the bed hummed softly. Matteo's small breaths rose and fell, steady, peaceful, as if carried by something greater than lungs. The man continued, your husband was not gone, only hidden from your sorrow. Love does not disappear, Elena. It waits. Her lips trembled. You showed him to Matteo? He shook his head gently. No, I only opened the door. The rest, your love did. Her knees weakened. She held the side of the bed to stay standing. Who are you? She whispered. The question had lived in her bones since the parking lot. And now, it finally rose. He didn't answer immediately. He lowered his chin, closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening to a voice deeper than silence. Then he lifted his gaze to her again, and something changed. The room didn't get brighter, but he did. Not glowing, not shining, just more real, more solid, more eternal. As if everything else, the walls, the machines, the floor, had become background noise to the truth standing before her. Elena, he said softly, I came because your heart called for help. Her tears spilled again. But who are you? This time he smiled. Not the smile of a stranger, not of a comforter, but of someone who had been there since her first breath. Elena, he whispered, I am the one who walks with every mother who cries alone, the one who hears every prayer buried under fear, the one who never left your side, even when you stopped believing in miracles. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Tell me your name, she whispered. He took one final step toward her, close enough that she felt warmth radiate from him, a warmth that felt like childhood, like forgiveness, like home. Elena, he said, his voice carrying the weight of eternity. I am Jesus. Before she could speak, something happened behind her, something she never saw coming. Elena spun around so quickly her breath stumbled in her chest. Matteo, her son, the boy who hadn't opened his eyes in 3 days. His fingers moved, just a twitch at first, small enough for doubt, big enough for hope. She froze. Her knees nearly buckled. Matteo? Her voice cracked like thin glass. Another twitch. This time the hand curled, slow and deliberate, as if waking from a very long dream. The room seemed to inhale with her. The lights hummed. The heart monitor beeped in a new rhythm. Not loud, but alive. Behind her, Jesus remained silent. Not interfering. Not performing. Just witnessing. Elena leaned over the bed, trembling so hard she had to brace herself. Baby, can you hear me? Her tears dripped onto his sheets. Then, a faint sound. Barely a whisper. A breath brushing through cracked lips. Mom? Her heart broke open. Completely. Utterly. She gasped, a sob escaping her in a single burst. I'm here. I'm right here. Mateo's eyelids fluttered, weak, unsteady, but trying. His lips moved again. Mom? I saw him. Elena froze. Her hands turned cold. You saw who, sweetheart? Mateo swallowed, his voice shaky but certain. Dad. A lightning bolt of grief shot through her. But then Mateo added, and the man in white. He told me I wasn't alone. Tears flooded down her face. Slowly she turned toward Jesus, but he wasn't where he had been standing. He was near the window now, hands folded behind his back, watching the faint morning light seep through the glass. Elena, he said gently, love is the only bridge between worlds. And today, your son crossed it. She covered her mouth to stop another sob. But why? Her voice trembled with both gratitude and confusion. Why help us? He turned slightly, and for the first time, she saw something ancient in his eyes. Older than mountains, older than sorrow, older than time. Because, he whispered, every mother's cry reaches heaven. Her tears broke again. She sank to the edge of the bed, holding Mateo's hand as though anchoring herself to reality. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how to repay. You already have, he said, by loving him with all your heart. Love is the only offering heaven seeks. Mateo blinked, his voice barely audible. He held my hand, Mom. Dad did. He told me he wasn't gone. Just waiting. Elena sobbed, pressing her forehead to her son's. Jesus watched them. His face soft with a tenderness that no human language had ever named. Then, with no sound, no flash, no miracle fireworks, he stepped back, and the morning sunlight swallowed him. Elena opened her eyes, and the room was empty. Only a folded piece of paper lay on the windowsill. Elena blinked rapidly, trying to clear the blur in her vision. The room was empty. Where he had stood, there was nothing. No footsteps, no shadow, no sign that a man had ever been there. Only the soft morning light filtering through the window, and a folded piece of paper resting on the sill. Her heartbeat stumbled. Elena? Mateo whispered, his voice still fragile. She forced a trembling smile. It's okay, baby. I'm right here. But her eyes were fixed on the note. Her legs felt weak as she stood. She crossed the room slowly, each step heavy, as if the air had thickened with something holy. She reached the window. The paper was small, folded with intention, edges slightly warm, like it had just been placed there. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside, the handwriting was precise, gentle, the kind of handwriting that seemed to breathe. She read, Elena, miracles do not break the laws of life. They reveal the laws of love. Her breath hitched. She kept reading. You feared the darkness would take everything from you. But darkness is only the space where light decides to grow. Tears blurred the ink. Another line. Your husband walked with your son when you could not. And love carried both of them back to you. Her knees weakened again. She pressed one hand to her mouth to hold in a sob. And then the final line. When fear ends, God begins. Jesus. The note slipped from her fingers and fluttered softly to the floor. Behind her, Mateo whispered, Mom, he's not gone. I can feel it. She turned to him, and what she saw made her cry a new kind of tears. Mateo was sitting up. Weak, yes. Fragile, yes. But alive. Breathing. Looking at her like the world had just been reborn. Come here, he said weakly. She rushed to the bed, gathering him in her arms. A desperate, trembling embrace that felt like holding a miracle. She cried into his hair. Cried everything. Fear, pain, loneliness, relief, gratitude, until her tears soaked his hospital gown. Mateo whispered, he told me that love never leaves. It only waits for us to open the door. Elena held him tighter. And in that small hospital room, with the first light of dawn painting the world gold, She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Home, hope, and a presence, unseen, but unmistakable, lingering in the quiet. When Elena looked toward the doorway, she saw a shadow pass, familiar, gentle, as if someone had stopped there for a moment, just to make sure they were okay. Elena sat beside her son long after the doctors rushed in, long after the nurses whispered words like impossible and unexplainable. But she wasn't listening. Not to them. Not anymore. Her hand rested gently on Mateo's. His small fingers curled around hers, warm, present, alive. Outside the window, the first rays of sunlight spilled across the hospital courtyard. Birds began to stir, greeting the new day with soft, trembling songs. For the first time in years, Elena felt the world breathe with her. She exhaled slowly. Every corner of her heart softened. The grief, the fear, the guilt, the loneliness, all melting into something lighter. Hope. She looked at her son sleeping peacefully beside her and whispered, "You're safe now. We're safe." When she lifted her head, her eyes drifted to the doorway. No one was there. Just a gentle emptiness. An emptiness that felt full. As if someone had just left. But left something behind. Not an object. Not a sign. A certainty. Her gaze moved to the floor where the folded note lay. She picked it up, smoothing the creases with reverent fingers. Those final words whispered again in her mind. When fear ends, God begins. She closed her eyes, letting the truth settle deep within her chest. Outside, the sunlight brightened, painting everything in gold, soft, warm, alive. And in that golden quiet, Elena understood something she had never understood before. Miracles don't shout. They don't arrive with thunder. They don't break the laws of nature. They happen the way dawn happens. Slowly, softly, so gently that you don't realize the darkness is gone. Until you look around and see the world reborn. Mateo let out a small sigh in his sleep. The kind of sigh only a child makes. Innocent, peaceful, safe. Elena brushed her fingers through his hair and whispered, "Thank you for giving me back my son, for giving me back my life." And in the stillness that followed, as sunlight stretched across the room like open arms, she felt it, a warmth behind her, soft as breath, light as a blessing, not a presence she could see, not a voice she could hear, but a certainty that she was not alone, not anymore, not ever. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not the ones we wait for, but the ones that wait for us, quietly, patiently, until our hearts are ready to believe again.